You got a D for me? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamunā Vanachari Yamunā Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti-vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. All right, just give me a second here. Sorry. Okay. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhaktim bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 22nd day of January 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 7, The Science of God, Chapter 5, Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu, and we're continuing our exploration of text 7, 5, 23 to 24. So again, we'll chant this verse. Shri Pararuvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam pāda-sevanam archanam vandhanam dasyam sakyam atmanivedanam. Shri Pararuvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam pāda-sevanam archanam vandhanam dasyam sakyam atmanivedanam. Shri Pararuvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam pāda-sevanam archanam vandhanam dasyam sakyam atmanivedanam. Shri Pararuvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam pāda-sevanam archanam vandhanam dasyam sakyam atmanivedanam. Shri Pararuvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam pāda-sevanam archanam vandhanam dasyam sakyam atmanivedanam. Shri Pararuvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam pāda-sevanam archanam vandhanam dasyam sakyam atmanivedanam. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam pāda-sevanam archanam vandhanam dasyam sakyam atmanivedanam. Online, anyone?
Shri Pararuvacha
Shri Pararuvacha
Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu
Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno
Smaranam pāda-sevanam
Smaranam pāda-sevanam
archanam vandhanam dasyam
archanam vandhanam dasyam
sakyam atmanivedanam.
sakyam atmanivedanam. Okay, word by word. Shri Pararuvacha. Prahlad Maharaj said, Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, chanting, Vishno, of Lord Vishnu, not anyone else. Smaranam, remembering. Pāda-sevanam, serving the feet. Archanam, offering worship. With Shodashopachara, the 16 kinds of paraphernalia. Vandanam, offering prayers. Dasyam, becoming the servant. Sakyam, becoming the best friend. Atma-nivedanam, surrendering everything, whatever one has. Translation. Prahlāda Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming His servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto Him, in other words, serving Him with the body, mind, and words, these 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. And we have come to the point of pāda-sevanam. Wait a minute. Got that. Okay, pāda-sevanam, number 4. According to one's taste and strength, hearing, chanting, and remembrance may be followed by pāda-sevanam. One obtains the perfection of remembering when one constantly thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. Being intensely attached to thinking of the Lord's lotus feet is called pāda-sevanam. When one is particularly adherent to the process of pāda-sevanam, this process gradually includes other processes, such as seeing the form of the Lord, touching the form of the Lord, circumambulating the form or temple of the Lord, visiting such places as Jagannātha Purī, Dvārakā, and Mathurā to see the Lord's form, and bathing in the Ganges or Yamunā. Bathing in the Ganges and serving a pure Vaishnav are also known as tadiya upasanam. This is also pāda-sevanam. The word tadiya means, quote, in relationship with the Lord, unquote. Service to the Vaishnav, Tulsi, Ganges, and Yamunā are included in pāda-sevanam. All these processes of pāda-sevanam help one advance in spiritual life very quickly. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandjana shalakaya chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, before we get into the details of this little section on pāda-sevanam, I'd like to try to atone for yesterday's class where I didn't quote verses that were so important. So just to review, because it's, and also I'm going to discuss the Krishna Kathashtaka in the 12th canto, which ends with exactly this, remembering the lotus feet of the Lord and the benefits of remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, which developed from Krishna Katha and hearing and chanting. So it's very natural. So that little section at the beginning of the 2nd chapter, I'd just like to set that straight. So first, Shukadeva Goswami praises the question. The question is, what should one think of? What should one remember at the time of death? This is a question that all of us need to answer. And he praises, wonderful question. And then he says, but there are millions of things that everyone can hear about besides questions like this. And so he describes the essence of grihamedi life, means materialistic family life, as absorbed too much in sleeping and sex at night, and daytime too much running, where is money, and shopping on the weekend. Kutumba Baranenava. And then he describes how they have these fallible soldiers thinking that my body will save me, my wife, my children. And even though they see that these have failed in the past, their grandfather has died, and there's a whole series that's never worked, but still they don't see. And so after describing this situation, then he has this verse, Etavad, and I finally figured out what it was. etavad sankhya yoga bhyam swadharma padinishthaya janmalabhak padak pungsam ante narayana smriti. And we're back to exactly that theme of remembering Narayana, remembering Krishna at the time of death. So, what is he saying there? Etavad, I mentioned how these verses, you'll find them scattered throughout the Bhagavatam, that they often summarize a very important point of philosophy. So, we can have a class just on Etavan verses. But this one is very well known. So what he's saying there is that whatever you do in terms of Sankhya, analytical study of the material world and shrine of pure spirit, or yoga, that's meditative yoga, Sankhya yoga, Swadharma, nicely engaging in your varna and ashram, your duties there. The success, Janmalabhak Parapungsam, you will achieve the success in this birth by remembering Narayana at the end of life. So there's your remembrance and the whole thing. And therefore, tasmat, then you have the therefore verse, tasmat bharata, sarvatma, bhagavan ishvaro hari, shrotavyak kirtitavyasya dhyeyak, shrotavyak kirtitavyasya smartavyak chechitabhyam. There's your remembrance, see? So he's saying, therefore, O Bharat, the descendant of Bharat, Maharaj Purikit, here's what you should do. Now you have a certain limited time left, as we all do. The Sarvatma, Bhagavan, Ishvaro Hari, 4 different designations for Krishna. Remember, in order to remember this soul of all, this Sarvatma, the super soul, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara, the Supreme Controller, and Hari, then here's what you should do. Shrotavyak, hear, Kirtavyak, chant, just like what we're reading about. Shrotavyak, Smartavyak, Chechitabhyam. And therefore, in that way, remember him if you desire fearlessness at the time of death, which we should all desire. If we're scared stiff, and believe me, I saw it firsthand. I worked in a hospital for a whole year as an inhalation therapist, and I saw a whole bunch of people die. And they're terrified. Mostly they're sedated, which is the worst thing, to be unconscious. Who knows what. But it's, no one has an idea. What it means, what they can do, what they should think of like that. So that's like that's our final exam. We are practicing Krishna consciousness, and yam yang bhabi smarang bhabam chadajante kalevanam, Krishna Prabhupada, whatever you think at the time of death, that will determine your next life. And so the previous verse in the 8th chapter, antakali tamameva smaran muktva kalevam yapriyate samadbhavam yastinatvyatra sankshaya. Very important verse. At the end time, antakali, that's death, the end time of this particular body, the expiry date comes. Antakali mama smaran muktva kalevanam, as one gives up the body, remembers me, muktva kalevanam, yak priyati samadbhavam, he attains to my nature, the spiritual world, there's no doubt about it, you see. So this is a very important verse. And it's part of this what's being spoken of here. Now, I'd like to just refer, because it's directly involved in this, with pāda-sevanam and remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. And that's this, some of you may have heard me refer to this before, of the Krishna Kathashtaka. These are 8 verses, starting in 12th canto, 12th chapter, text 48. So the book ends in the 13th chapter, so it's right near the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it begins with a word that we should all know, Sankirtyamana. He's talking about Sankirtyamana. I won't give you all the Sanskrit, but it's very beautiful. I'll just read the translations here. When people properly glorify the Supreme Lord or simply hear about His power, the Lord personally enters their hearts and cleanses away every trace of misfortune, just as the sun removes the darkness or as a powerful wind drives away the clouds. So now in teaching, as you find in Bhagavad Gita also, say 16th chapter, to give the positive, what are the positive qualities of a devotee, and then there's the negative in the 16th chapter, the demonic, divine and demonic, right? So the idea of contrast, this is how you learn, this is how you see. So now he's giving the opposite side. But on the other hand, Mrishagara, words that do not describe the transcendental personality of Godhead, but instead deal with temporary matters, are simply false and useless. Then he goes positive again. Only those words that manifest the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord are actually truthful, auspicious, and pious. And then he goes on, and this is like one of the best, the most incredible verses in the whole Bhagavatam, glorifying the process of hearing and chanting. Those words describing the glories of the all-famous personality of Godhead are attractive, relishable, and ever fresh. Indeed, such words are a perpetual festival for the mind, and they dry up the ocean of misery. Isn't that exciting? And so that's what Prabhupada has given us. He's flooded us with all of these books. He's Nectar with Devotion, the CC, the Bhagavatam itself, Bhagavad Gita, all of them are a perpetual festival for the mind. We just have to take them and hear them, remember them, discuss them, and share them, and live by them. So then he goes back. Now is the other one. And this verse may ring a bell for those of you who na yadvachat chitta badang hare yasho. Wait a minute, isn't that in the beginning, in the first canto? This is almost exactly the same verse. He repeats from the 5th chapter, 1st canto, in which Narada Muni is inspiring Vyasadeva to write the Bhagavatam. If you read the Bhagavatam in the 1st canto, you'll find that we soon get to the point where Vyasadeva is upset. He's kind of dissatisfied. He's written everything else. He's written all the Puranas and the Karmakanda and the different Vedas. He's Veda Vyas. But he says he's not quite satisfied with all of that. And why? So he's thinking why, he suspects why, and Narada Muni comes, his spiritual master. And he says something, do you think that it's right to exalt the body and the mind as the object of self-realization? In other words, so much of that, Karma Kanda, and even the other Puranas, are dealing with prosperity or material things. It's not purely, wholly, and solely about bhakti, about Krishna, Krishna's devotees, the process of devotion, different avatars, everything like that. So that was the instruction. So you meditate. Now you meditate on the Lord. This is in chapter 7, I think that meditation happens in 1st canto. And very important, Bhakti-yoga manasi samyak pranahite malaya pasyat purusham pavanam tvayam madapashriyam mayacha yadapashriyam. So he's meditating, manasi, and he's seeing the Lord, and he's seeing Maya behind him. You see, she's can't challenge Krishna. She's behind him. Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam triganapagam parobimanato nartam yat kripachavipadditam. By that Maya, everyone in this material world, materially conditioned, is bewildered. Yaya sammohito is completely sammohito jiva atmanam triganapagam. Although they're transcendental to the modes of nature, they don't know that, and therefore they suffer so many pains and sufferings. You see? So those by anartas, they become the unwanted things, right? So now here's how the Bhagavatam comes in. Anartopashamam sakshat bhakti-yoga manhokshaje lokasya janato vidvang chakre satvata sanghita. Anartopashamam sakshat bhakti, those anartas are directly counteracted by the process of bhakti-yoga. But people don't know that. In Kali Yuga, we don't know that. And therefore, Vyas wrote the Bhagavatam to tell them. And then it describes one who reads this, Krishna Bhakti manifests in the heart and everything happens. So, but the run-up is where Narada Muni is more or less chastising Vyasadeva a little bit. He's the spiritual master. They do that, And he has this verse, Nayad bachas chitta badang hare yasho. Now, he switched the order. In the 5th chapter, the next verse comes first. But anyway, this verse is very famous. Prabhupada took this verse, it's almost identical, and put it into his preface. Now the preface of a book, this is my field, the preface of a book explains how the book came to be written. You see? A foreword is usually written by someone else who is in appreciation of the book. The preface is written by the author. So Prabhupada put this verse in his preface. You know why? Because although he was well known for his writing the English, he had published the Back to Godhead, and he had already published the Easy Journey and some other book. And his spiritual master told him to write, especially in English. Still, it was his second language. He wasn't so confident in it, that it was that great. And so, but this verse gave him encouragement. Those words that do not, I'm sorry. Okay. No, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. But we'll read this one first. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, and so on of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation. Now the previous words, which I'll also read the translation, says, those words that don't glorify Krishna are a pilgrimage place for crows. Now that's a polite saying where they're a garbage heap, right? The swan-like devotees don't frequent there. They're happy in the lake, of studying the Bhagavatam. That's the previous verse. I'll read the whole translator. So then, on the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, and so on of the Lord, is a different creation full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Now, just a little intermission here. We should remember that when Prabhupada came to America, these are the only books he had. And the devotees, when they were reading his book, they were reading this first canto, and they were basically coming upon this. So this revolution, it's a revolutionary time. 1968 was the year. If you look at the history, we expected the revolution to come in America. Instead, we got Nixon elected. Anyway, but this resonated with devotees there completely. So, which is full of description, transcendental glories of the Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So Prabhupada said I think in the preface, or one of the early purports there, that he said, my efforts here will surely fail because my English is not that great. But because of this verse, encouraging him, even if imperfectly composed, even if every verse is perfectly composed, it says, yasman prati shlokam, every verse is not, correct. Still, those who are honest, they'll read it because of the subject matter, because of the movie, So Prabhupada said, I'm going to write it anyway. And he came to America with those books, and who's one of the first persons he met? A college English teacher, Hayagriva. It's definitely an arrangement right on the streets of New York there. And Hayagriva had already been to India looking for a guru and everything, and he became his first editor, and he was invaluable. He made some mistakes, which were correcting, but still, that was it. And I'm just going to read the previous one, it's so famous. Those words that don't describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows, and are never resorted to by those situated in transcendental knowledge. The pure and saintly devotees take interest only in topics glorifying the infallible Supreme Lord. Hangsa Sevatam. So the Hangsa means the swan-like devotees. I don't know why we left that out. Maybe okay. So it goes on here and describes how that so-called transcendental efforts in personalism, which is free from any description of Achyuta, of Krishna, is also useless. Doesn't look very good. Don't go into that. So then, this is what I wanted to just emphasize here, because it talks about remembrance, and it talks about remembrance of the lotus feet, which is exactly what pāda-sevanam is, right? That's what he says in the purport. So yashakshiyam eva parishamak paro, the great endeavor one undergoes in executing the ordinary social and religious duties of the varnashram system, and this is all described in the other books that he wrote, that he was dissatisfied with. Those efforts in performing austerities and in hearing from the Vedas culminates only in the achievement of mundane fame and opulence. In other words, there's plenty of books in the Vedic canon which deal with the karma kanda section. Material advancement, either on this earth or higher planets. So that's the culmination. But respecting and attentively hearing the recitation of the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord, the husband and goddess of fortune, one can remember his lotus feet. And really this has been fixed. And no one can get on my case because I was the editor and it wasn't Prabhupada who wrote it. Avismati. Sridhara Pada Padmaya, a name for Krishna, one is Sridhara, means he is the husband and the goddess of fortune. Avismriti is more powerful than just smriti, you see? It means never forgetting. So think about it, never forgetting means constant remembrance. Otherwise, remembrance can be interrupted, as we learned in that purport to the nectar of instruction. At first, remembrance, as we've all experienced, comes and then we forget. We're reenacting our fall from the spiritual world by voluntarily forgetting Krishna. So, avismriti, constant remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord comes from gunanavada shravanada, by hearing and respecting and glorifying the qualities of the Lord and pastimes and name. And so the final verse, which was this in the book written by Bhakti Vikas Swami about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, there was one section there, those who are familiar with it, where he's relating the verses that Bhaktisiddhanta would often quote in classes. Isn't that correct, Amoga? There's a section there, have you read? And this is one of the verses, right here. Avismati Krishna Badara Vindayo Chinotya Buddhani Chashantanoti Satvasta Shuddhim Padamatma Bhaktim Jnanam Chivijnana Vidhaga Yuktam. Constant remembrance of Lord Krishna's lotus feet destroys everything inauspicious and awards the greatest good fortune. It purifies the heart and bestows devotion for the Supreme Soul, along with knowledge enriched with realization and renunciation. So that brings us back to pāda-sevanam. And remember the beginning of that little section of the purport that we read. One obtains perfection according to one's taste and strength. Hearing, chanting, and remembrance may be followed by pāda-sevanam. One obtains the perfection of remembering when he constantly thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. That's exactly what he's describing in those other verses. So it all starts, you see, with a progression. It comes from the hearing and chanting. That's what that is. It's the Krishna Kathashtaka, perpetual festival for the mind. Why would you ever want to end it? It's perpetual. It's not time-bound like everything here. So that's what we find the great devotees. You know, read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya is showing in the Yanti Leela. He was meeting with his intimate associates. They were hearing and chanting. They were doing kirtan throughout the night. There was no question of ending it. Then the sun would come up. Oh, I have some morning duties I have to perform. You know, they have to say. But there's really, to get that taste where, you know, there's just no desire to stop, because it's just like sense gratification. There's no desire to stop, but the body has its limits, right? And you know that you know, eventually the sense gratification just produces suffering. One of my favorite verses, you've all heard it before, Yehi sangsbhajata bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyandabantan konteya nateshu ramate buddha. This is from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, I think it's 22. That revised translation says, intelligent persons do not take part in the pleasures which are due to contact of the senses with their sense objects. In other words, sense gratification. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of all misery, and they have a beginning and an end. And so the wise do not delight in them. So what do they delight in? You got to have pleasure. Previous verse. Bayasparshesh vasaktatma vindityatmadiyat sukham sab brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnite. That one phrase should be so fascinating. Krishna is promising sukham akshayam. Unbroken happiness. Doesn't come to an end. You see? So what this says is bayasparshesu, this external taste, touch, you know, contact the senses. No. Bayasparshesu asaktatma. Have no attraction for it. Realized souls. Vindityatmaniyat sukham. They're tasting the unlimited happiness within. This whole pamphlet, The Reservoir of Pleasure, I don't know if we still distribute those, but back in the day we distributed millions of those things. They're little pamphlets practically given away for free. They're based on the feature of that is a lecture, edited lecture of Prabhupada's that he gave on the Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu verse. No, not that. That's Shravanam. Yeah. How does it go? In that chapter 2 of the first canto. Everyone knows this one. Huh? How's it? Shrunvatam. Thanks you. Shrunvatam Sakata Krishna. The whole Prabhupada's giving a lecture on that, and he begins his, the name Krishna. It's so beautiful. It's so tasty. It's so full of pleasure, you know. And so then the whole pamphlet comes. So the point is that this verse says, Vindit Yatmani Yatsukam Sab Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. They're linked up with yoga, with Bhakti-yoga, so Brahma. Here Brahma means Supreme Brahman, Krishna. Sukham Akshayam Ashtana. And so they enjoy unlimited happiness. And in that purport, there's a verse some of you may be familiar with, about Ramante Yogano Enante Satyananda Charatmani Iti Rama Pade Nasu Param Brahma Madiyate. This is also quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. What is that name Rama? He says, Ramante yogino anante, the bhakti yogis, they enjoy unlimited happiness. Ramante yogino anante, endless. Satyananda chiratmani, this is real happiness, real bliss. Satyananda chiratmani, it is the spiritual happiness that comes from serving Krishna. Thus, iti Rama padenaso param, therefore the Param Brahma, the Supreme Brahman, is known by the name of Rama. Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. And there's also a verse about the name Krishna, which I won't give you at this point. What is the internal meaning of it? So anyway, these verses that I quoted, the last two, describe, especially the last one, the benefit of constantly remembering the lotus feet of Krishna. And that's pāda-sevanam. And in this purport, one obtains the perfection of remembering when one constantly thinks of the lotus feet of Krishna. This is directly there at the end of the Bhagavatam. Everything is completely consistent. Constant, avismriti means constant remembrance. So what does that mean? What's so special about the lotus feet of Krishna? Well, it means service. It means being always 100% in that service attitude. As soon as you bow down to the lotus feet, you glorify the lotus feet. Like the gopis come out, or the Brahman's wives, they come out, and then they have the identical line when Krishna tells them to go back. He tells the gopis to go back. He's testing them. Adulterous affairs are not good for they don't give you passage to heaven. He's preaching to them, and they're, what is this? He called us out with the flute, and now he's telling us to go back. So they complain, no, we can't go back, we just want to stay here and serve your lotus feet. We have no other business. And the Brahman's wife said the same thing. They say, what are you speaking these cruel words for? They're supposed to speak identical Sanskrit. You look it up. I remember reading it, and I said, wow, this is amazing. The difference is the Brahman's wives were not on the same level. They went back. He convinced them that, your husbands need you to complete the sacrifice. I think that's the thing, right? The wives are involved in the sacrifice. They said, oh no, they're going to reject us because we came in. No. They won't reject you. They'll see you as their spiritual masters, and that's what it was. And the Brahmin wives, they use this word dik. What does it mean? Dik. Yeah. So the Brahmins would say, you read the Krishna book, the hell with our Brahminical birth, the hell with our mantra chanting. The Supreme Personality of Godhead was there, and we didn't even honor him, But they still didn't go to him. They were afraid of Kamsa, because they're not advanced enough. But their wives didn't care. They just weren't at it. Then they came back, and their husbands would say, they're like our spiritual masters, So this pāda-sevanam, it means to not, to hear about Krishna, and ultimately you hear about the glories, and you hear about the glories of the service and the servants, and you say, and you're becoming one. You actively engage in service to the lotus feet, and that come of dasyam, this is all service. And so that remembrance, not just of Krishna, but of your relationship with Krishna, which is all based on service. That's the pāda-sevanam. And serving, this was so fascinating, I had forgotten this, how bathing in the Ganges and visiting the holy places, this is also pāda-sevanam. Because Krishna is very pleased when you serve that someone or something that's related to him. You remember that conversation between Shiva and Parvati? She asked, what's the best service, right? And what's the first part of that? Arinandam sarvesham Vishnu arinam param. Actually, he says, of all different kinds of worship, the best is worship of Vishnu. But then, tasmat paratanang devi tadiyanam savarsanam. The same word, tadiyanam samarchanam, right? But even better than that, better means more pleasing to Krishna. Better than that is a worship of that which is related to Krishna's devotees, Krishna's temple, Tulsi Devi, which is an intimate devotee, Such a blessing Prabhupada gave us to have this Tulsi Puja. He was so happy when Govinda Dasi was able to grow Tulsi in Hawaii. That was the beginning, And that's why we say, some of you may wonder, why do we say Vishnu Bhakti? And on many temples they say Krishna Bhakti, right? Vindayai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Kesavasacha Krishna Bhakti Paridevi Sacha. It seems more natural, right? But the reason why we say Vishnu Bhakti is because when Prabhupada first learned about from Govinda Dasi in a letter that she was growing these tulsis in Hawaii, and he said, "Oh, wonderful, wonderful! Then you can start sending them out to the different temples so they'll have tulsis." And then he gave the mantras, the chant, and it was Vishnu Bhakti. And so I searched hard and wide. I wrote your spiritual master because he was there present in Bombay and with Prabhupada so many times. Was he ever there in the Tulsi Puja and leading that prayer? Did he ever say Krishna Bhakti? And no one could confirm that. And so we're staying with the letter. That's why we say Vishnu Bhakti. It's not the end of the world if you say Krishna Bhakti. You know, you'll find that in many temples. It's like that verse I quoted yesterday, Smarta Vyaktatam Vishnu Vismatavyana Jatuchit. All of whatever we do, you know, the chanting of the holy name, getting up early in the morning, serving, Sankirtan, everything, it's all in service of increasing our remembrance of Krishna. Smarta to become to the point of always increasing the remembrance, of always remembering. So, but there it says Vishnu. Right? Smarta Vyatidam Vishnu. And so right there in the translation to it, Prabhupada says, Krishna is the original Vishnu form. And then, so the rest of the verse, that's the translation. So it says Vishnu here, but we're talking about Krishna. That's what he says. But he never did that with the Tulsi prayer. So we say Vishnu, but obviously. But then, you don't know, I don't know if anyone knows this, but Prabhupada's godbrothers were critical of him, of giving us the song that we chant. You know, Namo Namo Tulasi, because it's prayer. It's a prayer to become a manjari bhava. You know, and those of you maybe not, you remember that? That was like there was a whole period in ISKCON from '94 to about 10 years later, and a group of devotees left ISKCON and they went to take shelter of not part of his godbrothers, but his god nephew, Narayan Maharaj, who by the way had a very important role to play in a trial that came up. Many of you don't know this. There was a certain point when Prabhupada left his body, and he arranged that there would be a regular payment. I don't know how big, it wasn't that big, to his family, right? You know about it. But I don't know if it was all of them, but one of them was thinking, no, we should inherit the entire ISKCON. He was our father, and this was his property, and like that, you know. And they used as proof, because I think legally in India, when you take sannyas, you become civilly dead, right? And so you don't really have the relationship anymore. So they can't claim anything, and generally sannyasi don't have anything, you know. But Prabhupada founded this, you know, this company, ISKCON, you know, and it was flourishing like anything. They had temples all over the world. So the question was he a genuine sannyasi or not? Because that's the law. And this Narayan Maharaj, he testified to Prabhupada's genuineness. Even though he had all these buildings and he could stay, he never just sat down there, you know. It was really very, very obvious when he got the Detroit temple. I mean, it was very opulent. It was built as a big mansion for one of the executives of Ford Company, I think. And but then it went up for sale. What grew up around it was some slums, so you know it wasn't so valuable. They were able to get it for $300,000, which was a steal for that thing. It wasn't only Ambarish, but also Lekha Shravanti, who was the daughter of one of the main organizers of unions. She had some money also. Anyway, so you know, and Prabhupada, when they got it, Prabhupada was getting older and it was difficult to travel. Everyone would have been perfectly happy if he just stayed there. It was very comfortable. But no, you know, he had so many letters from devotees, please come, and so many things happened. He just took off. So that and many other things in Prabhupada's life and what he did proved that in spite of all the wealth that he had at his disposal and all the servants who would do anything for him, he was still in that mood of sannyas. And he gave us a stipend. I think he gave him something, but you know, it wasn't the whole movement, you can imagine. So that was important. But then there's a whole part of bhakti which I think I touched on. You know, Prabhupada touched on. That's why I read it in the 8th purport and the teachings of not the teachings, the Upadeshamrita. And that is this Raghanuga Bhakti. where you get attracted by a certain mood in relation to Krishna, and you find someone realizing that mood, and you try to follow in the footsteps of a specific associate of Krishna, and you hear all about them, and this. Prabhupada didn't emphasize that for us. It's not that he didn't deal with that in Nectar of Devotion, Ragatmika Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti, But he was our Ragatmika Bhakti, Bhakta, Srila Prabhupada. And following in his footsteps, we feel very secure. He was there and lived in Vrindavan, in Radha Damodar. He had a vision of Rupa Goswami, There's another one, this wonderful biography, not biography of Prabhupada, but remembrances of Prabhupada by those who knew him before he came to America. Mula Prakriti wrote this, And it's wonderful. And one of the things was that Prabhupada was crying. He was in the Radha Damodar temple, and the person who lived there, who was helping him to stay there and everything, once heard him. He was crying, because he felt, how is he going to fulfill the order of his spiritual master, But in addition, he was wearing this super opulent garland that was super fragrant, and he could smell it throughout the whole courtyard there and everything. And no one knew where that garland came from. It didn't come from the deities. It came from Krishna. And you hear about those things with Shyamananda, who got the special tilak and things, and remnants from his dealings on the higher plane. He'd come down and said, "Where'd you get that?" Anyway, these things. Prabhupada was definitely at the very highest level of prema bhakti. And he gave us the mission not to retire to Vrindavan and search for our Siddhadeha and all of these things, but rather to preach as hard as possible, distribute his books, and do all of that. And when the time comes, you retire. Mayapur there should be a whole place, which they're building now, where people can retire when the body just doesn't do it. And that's success. You have a whole life of preaching and devotion. You serve Lord Chaitanya's mission, serve Srila Prabhupada, and now you have the taste for hearing and chanting, and all of it is there, and you're like that. That was Prabhupada's program. So anyway, I don't know how I got off on that. But Prabhupada has given us everything, and he tried, like anything, to complete the Bhagavatam, but he certainly inspired us, to finish it. And it's all there, and the CC is there, and other books that he authorized. Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he recommended that in one of his letters. And, the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, so many things have come out, and can nourish it. The books of Shivaram Swami, very, very nice. So all of that is available, and this purport is to take us how to, keep chanting and hearing and serving and meditating on Krishna's lotus feet means always regarding oneself as a servant, as a. We know the verse, right? The famous verse, Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavambudho kripayata papada pankajas titaduli sadushang vishindaya. Lord Chaitanya is teaching us how to pray there. Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell into this horrid sea of birth and death, O Lord. O Nanda's son, please hear my plea. By your sweet grace, consider me a speck of dust upon your lotus feet forevermore. That means consider me your servant for eternity. Humble servant. So I'll leave it at that. Any questions, comments on some of these points? We have the mic there.
This goes back to earlier in your lecture. Can you talk a little bit more about Rama and the Supreme Brahman? Is that what you said?
That's in the verse. Yeah. Well, here's the verse, and this is quoted in the purport in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's also quoted in the CC. Ramante yogano nante satyananda chidatmani iti ramapadenasu padam brahmabhitiyate. So the yogis, bhakti yogis, realized yogis, they enjoy ramante yogano anante satyananda, the actual true ananda, not sense gratification, because it's unlimited and it doesn't stop. Satyananda chidatmani, because it is spiritual potency, spiritual, happiness. Iti, thus, Rama Padenasu, the letters Rama, in other words, the word Rama, Iti Rama Param Brahma Vidiyate, signifies the Param Brahma. Param Brahma is another way of saying the Supreme Brahman, which is Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Brahman. We are individual Brahman. The famous phrase, I don't know if you've ever learned this yet, because you haven't lived in the ashram. Did you ever hear, Aham Brahmasmi? Does that ring a bell? You can memorize it right now. Aham Brahmasmi. Yeah, Asmi means am. Aham is I. I am spirit, Brahman. We're also Brahman, part and parcel of Krishna, but we're not Para-Brahman. He's Para-Brahman. So Param-Brahman simply means the supreme absolute truth. And in the other verse, which I won't quote now, about Krishna, I'll give it again after class or something, describing how Krishna, the different syllables, what they mean and everything. And so it says the same thing at the end. Tadaikyam Param Brahma Krishna ityabhidiyate. And thus Krishna also designates the Supreme Brahman. That's why it's so powerful, because we're calling on the name of Krishna, which is not different from Krishna himself, which is the most inconceivable thing. But we can experience it. Otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here. From chanting, Krishna purifies, you get a taste, and you want to keep investigating, what is this that I just experienced? Before you know it, you're sitting in class at 7 in the morning. Anyone else? Sure. Okay. Give Jordan.
Towards the end, it sounded kind of like you were saying, like hearing isn't service, is it?
Hearing about Krishna?
Just
totally
hearing, like the chanting and hearing, because you're chanting
and
to
hearing.
hear.
Yeah. I don't know if you've been for the classes for the last 2 days. I think you have. We're studying this verse, which is, who can say it's not a seminal verse in the Bhagavad Gita? It outlines the 9 process of devotional service given by Prahlad Maharaj, who's a Mahajan. And the purport is the longest purport in the whole Bhagavatam. 20 pages in the printed book, because he's explaining each one. So it begins with hearing. That is definitely service. That is the first service. That is the basis of all services. Hearing. So being in class, and hearing your rounds, hearing Krishna Katha. Shavanam, and then repeating it. Kirtanam, chanting. And the essence of the whole thing is Hari Nam Sankirtan. Every time we're in the kirtan, we're hearing, and then we're chanting. And the person who is chanting is then hearing, right? Prabhupada described it this way. So that's the primary service we do to the Krishna and the spiritual master. And those two are tied together, hearing and chanting. And that produces remembrance. If you do it nicely, then you hear not only the holy name, but you hear the books and everything you read. Then you'll remember. Krishna will give you inspiration to remember. So hearing, chanting, and remembering are the first 3 of the 9. And then the fourth one is pāda-sevanam, and that's the one we're on now. That's why I was dealing with that. But they're totally related. And I remembered this, last night when because I knew I was going to class. Oh yeah, that's the whole culmination in the 12th canto, the very end of the Bhagavatam. He talks about how Sankirtanam, by chanting and hearing Krishna Katha, then it culminates in constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Krishna, which purifies the heart and inspires devotional service, and is that, and it shows you're going back to Godhead. If you're always remembering Krishna 24 hours a day, which is a little inconceivable right now, but that's what Prabhupada always talks about, even chanting 24 hours, then you're on the safe side. Even if the bombs start falling tomorrow, which is not impossible, you say, all right, let's go. We hear the sirens. You hear the sirens? Big kirtan, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And then we all evaporate, but no one dies. Everybody dies, but nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Then chant the holy name and attain life's goal. So we're all facing that, and we may face it together, which will be lucky actually to be in a kirtan, super kirtan going on, But that's the test, whether we can remember Krishna at the time of death. And if we come before that time comes to constant remembrance, then that's success, So it's all service. There's 9, all of these 9, there's 9 listed here. They're all service, but there's a progression, Atma-nivedanam, giving everything. Hare Krishna. Vijay, you there?
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, I'm here. How may I serve you?
You want to? I thought you might have a question. You usually have some question.
Yes, I do have a question.
All right, good. Go and ask it.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. You're most kind and about pranams. Do you mind reciting again the last sentence of pāda-sevanam in the purport?
Not at all. The last sentence goes like this. All these processes of pāda-sevanam help one advance in spiritual life very quickly.
Exactly. Thank you very much. That is the quote. So based on this quote, my question is, how do you explain that some devotees do make quick advancement and others take more time? It happens, it may happen that the devotee may even fall down and abandon, and then he abandons completely the process and he never comes back.
No,
how do you explain?
That's a shastric. Even if you abandon it for at a certain time in your life and you never visit the temple again, whatever you've done is not lost. You remember that verse? We should take it very seriously. Krishna says there is no loss or diminution in this process. Even a little advancement on this path protects one from the greatest fear, the greatest danger, actually. What is the greatest danger?
To lose the human form of life.
Exactly. So even that one person who, there's Harinam, right? We go to Harinam, we had the nice Harinam with Jagannātha, and so many people heard, and maybe a few people chanted, or maybe people said, that's just the Hare Krishnas. They said the holy name. So that's not lost. We have to we have to rely on the Shastra for this. I was so happy to see, because usually here, if someone just chants one time, then they get rid of so much karma. You don't see it, but they've been transformed. Even if, for the most part, they don't become Hare Krishnas or maybe even do anything else. But that one chanting, it's there several times in the Shastra, is so auspicious. And then the next time they'll still have to suffer, take birth again. It's not perfection, obviously, but they'll be able to chant again the next life. But in the prayers of Chitraketu, I think when he finally sees Sankarshan and he has these prayers, there's one that says, even hearing one time, not just chanting, even hearing one time gives you, freedom from all your different reactions. So nothing is lost. And yes, we've had devotees come and go, and they seemingly, become inimical even, to the movement and whatever. But still, they're still, have so much in the bank account there, and it'll have its effect. They'll get a human form of life, and and be able to start up again. So we don't want to.
And how do you explain that some devotees they make quick advancement, and others happen to take more time?
Well, because everyone is an individual, and we have independence. And if you're, one of the main things is the four regs. Is that the temptation is, especially sex life, the long thing, it becomes difficult, and so many things can happen. You get sick, and your sadhana is messed up. Or you work under a temple president and you find out, he just stole all the money and ran away. Then you break your faith in the whole thing, is lost. You feel cheated. So many things can happen. And if you allow that to affect your faith in Srila Prabhupada and the movement, then the chances are you fall away, temporarily. But also there's many cases where devotees fall away, but then at the end they come back. When they get that note from the doctor, sorry, you've got terminal cancer. Whoa, they come back into the association devotees. They want to try to take shelter because they know the value, There's been several like that. So it's all an individual thing, how determined you are to stay strict, how surrendered you are, and you can't predict that. But we should take encouragement from that verse in the Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada's preaching on it, that there's no loss or diminution. And so we want to try to go back to Godhead, but knowing full well that if we don't make it back this lifetime because we have some anarthas, that we'll get another chance next life. That was Krishna's preaching to Arjuna. Don't be discouraged, Srimatam Jai Gehe, you know, that you'll get born in a family, especially of yogis, you know, bhakti yogis. So that's the, you know, you can't predict what anyone's going to do, what they have in their heart and so many things. But over time, you can see that, you know, someone's determined and they're not going anywhere. You know, some of our great, like someone like Vaisheshika, who could imagine? You know, he's such an inspiration. How many thousands and thousands of Bhagavatam sets? He went to India to do the marathon this year. But it was in the North American BBT newsletter came out, but Savas added another letter, those who, you know, are on the list, praising him. It was, I don't know, way more than ever before the Bhagavatam sets were produced. So, Hare Krishna. We have one more question here, comment.
Just a silly joke. I was thinking, you said, yes, sometimes we see devotees maybe serving in the temple even for a long time, and then they disappear. But they have so much in their bank account. So I was thinking, yeah, sometimes it's doubly true. They have so much in their bank account due to their previous
literally bank account
devotional service, and because they took the hundi money with them. So they have so much in their bank account, even though they left. So.
Hare Krishna. That's why they left. Now I can leave. Yeah. Okay, we have something, Vira Chandra Prabhu.
Thank you for the class.
You're welcome.
I want to ask this connection with this question that how to say, if devotee, for example, make some offense. And he goes to hell or no?
To hell?
Yeah. Maybe very strong offense. I don't know.
Anywhere.
I don't know what example, but is because of if no, how to say, this is like seventh offense of holy name, that we do commit sinful activities on strength holy name, and where is difference when we do it or no? Because of if we in our mind comes thoughts that, oh, I can do anything because of I already chant Hare Krishna, and then
that's
no rules.
As the greatest offense. Prabhupada said several times, it's the greatest offense.
And if we commit this offense, what's the result?
Yeah, well, you're certainly not going back to Godhead, and you may have to suffer a lot in your next life. But going to hell, I'm not sure. I've never read. That, you know, going to hell and all the things that we read about in the fifth canto, you know. Maybe they go.
Some devotees said
there and
that
come back.
some special hell for devotees.
I'm not going to speculate on that, but it's that's kind of extreme. I mean, didn't it say that Yudhishthir, who refused to lie, had to see hell? I mean, he went to hell. He saw hell, but he didn't, you know, have to get punished and everything like that. I'm sorry?
You could be punished outside of hell, like in the next birth.
Oh yeah. But the thing is, the benefits are so wonderful, you know, for bhakti, that it's like this is it's also an impetus for preaching. That if someone just gets one book, you know, like with that lady at the laundromat. Yeah. Did you hear the scores from yesterday? Was it yesterday?
You're distributing books.
No, it was Sunday morning. I didn't distribute any books. I got to tell this story because so I'm in the laundromat. I usually go on Friday, but I had to go on Saturday this time. So I run into him. So I make a joke. You know, he's asking me a question. I said, "Watch out for this guy." You know, and she looked at me. So basically, it was just you and me in the laundromat. There's hardly. So anyway, it turns out this lady, she's interested. You know, I'm doing my laundry and she's doing her thing, business laundry, you know. She's running the place. And she said, "Oh, when do you have your dinners?" Because she knew about it. She said, "Oh, Sunday night, you know, you should come." At what time? 7:15, you know. Anyway, so she said, "Oh, she said, okay, maybe I'll come over, you know." And then Chad came over. And did you ask her whether she had any books or not?
I think you mentioned something about the books, and I was walking out, and I heard that, and I turned around and I go, I have books in the car.
Yeah, so she said, "Oh, I'd be very interested." And then he came. He had a Bhagavad Gita soft, and he had a little packet, you know. And he said, "I'll give it to you." You know, he wasn't. It was already paid for, or whatever. So that was, you know, I didn't distribute any books, but like, since hardly anyone else did, not either. So that's what that came out. But that's, you know, it's a wonderful thing. Here's the person, and I expect they'll show up, you know. And so you can see why Prabhupada wanted us to stay in the field as long as possible. Because as he describes, I was just reading some letters yesterday, the people they're out there. There's so many people out there that were curious. And this Prabhupada realized that. He just had to find the right place, you know, Lower East Side rather than Upper East Side, where there was hardly anyone. And you know, it was a special time and everything. But the fact is, in every country, in every place, there are people who be interested, especially if they see a devotee, and the devotee is glowing with bhakti, you know, and it has something that they feel, well, how did you get like that? They don't say that, but that's, you know. And so they become curious, and that is the Shraddha. That is the as Prabhupada said, that original Shraddha, Ado Shraddha Tadaksara Sangha, that's a matter of respect and interest to bring you into the association of devotees. And we should never forget, getting a book, Prabhupada's books, and opening, you're getting the best association. You're in the association. And of course, you know, better, of course, if they come, or if they get online and they actually get something live, you know, live devotee. But still, that's the way it works in this age. That the media, via media, Prabhupada talked in the media, is how so many people can get inspired. And that's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was so eager for the books. In those days, the book was the technology. You know, millions of people can get exposed, you know. So now we have the books, and we have the internet, and we have everything. But so you can see why the best service is to give Krishna consciousness to others, become a preacher, as long as we can, as best we can. And then, you know, either in, you know, when the end comes, you may be here or there, or you may be in the Dham. But the main thing is to be with devotees, and to hear the holy name, and be encouraged in Krishna consciousness, and, you know, go back to Godhead, or coming back one more time, and be part of ISKCON. That's the best we can do. It's better than making $1 million, $1 billion. You know, it's just, that's the success of life. You have a comment, then we'll end.
Yeah, and the benefit of doing that is that even if you don't achieve full success, but you distribute books at the end, you might leave the body, but the person who got a book from you, and you show them the way to, you know, associating with devotees, on the string of that, you can go back to Godhead.
Yeah, I'm not going to say no. Krishna has his own, yeah. And he sees your sincerity and what you did and everything, and that's all positive.
I think Prabhupada told Pragosh Prabhu that if you distribute, or no, I forgot who, it might have been Devi Shaktimat, I don't know who it was, I forget. But he said if you distribute books every day of your life, he said even if you don't remember Krishna at the time of death, Lord Chaitanya will force his way into your mind. So,
I think Vijay must have heard that past time too. And Brigupati is amazing. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.